Okay, so you're about to start TIG welding after you turn your machine on, but you might have a problem that's lurking and waiting for you, and you have no clue that it's about to make your life really difficult TIG welding. Sometimes it can show up right away and you have no idea what's causing it, and sometimes you could be welding for hours before you even realize there is a problem. When I started to TIG weld, one of the more experienced vets at our shop showed me this trick. So now I'm going to pass it on to you to make sure that this doesn't happen when you are welding. The problem that can happen without you even knowing lurks within your gas system. This can actually start to happen when your machine isn't even turned on. Okay, so in the dead of wintertime when things darn near freeze overnight, what happens is most people come into work in the morning, they fire up their machine as if it was any other day, and they expect for everything to be just as they left it the previous day when they were welding along, having no problems, and everything was just fine. Okay, look at these things here. Intricate connections here, more connections here, another one here, and there could be even more connections depending on the setup that you are using. So in other words, we have a lot of fittings, and even though they may be made of really good quality material, these things can start to wear over time from thermal expansion, from heating up, from hot weather or welding over time, and also contraction due to cold weather. Now, I personally find this problem to be a little bit more common in the wintertime. In most shops overnight, things get absolutely freezing. It's all concrete, all metal tables and stuff like that. Even in my old shop, it was fully heated. At nighttime, it would get freezing cold in there. Even though we also had proper coolant in our water coolers for our TIG welding machines, with constant freezing up and warming up over time, things just wear out. What this can do is this can actually cause threads to start backing off before you even know it, or in some cases, they can seize completely. Gas can leak a lot easier than you think, and you might even have a leak right now in your system that you don't know about. So now that we know what this first problem is, what is something that's going to help us fix it? Get yourself one of these things and let's do the first and easiest thing to find out if there is a problem. This is a gas flow meter. It has a simple ball readout and it goes on the end of your TIG torch like this. After you come into work in the morning, after your machine's been sitting there for a while, when you turn your machine on, check the readout that you get on your gas regulator and take note of it. We're gonna look at the working pressure gauge, not the cylinder gauge. We wanna see how much gas is actually gonna be running through the torch. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our flow meter here, we're gonna place it on the end of the torch, and take a look at my foot here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna activate the pedal just like this. And using this little fella right here, we can see if there is a discrepancy between these two numbers right away. What's going to happen is our machine is going to cycle gas for approximately 5 seconds or whatever you have your post flow set at. This reading at the torch here is the true reading that you want to pay attention to. So many people look at this pressure on the working pressure gauge on the regulator and they think that that's actually what's happening as far as gas. This here is going to give you the true reading of actually how much gas is traveling through your torch and coming out the end of it. This is the business end of the entire rig that we are going to be welding with. This is the most important area to take a reading from, and now you can compare it to your regulator and find out if the two numbers are reading correctly or if you have some inaccuracy between the two. I think a lot of people watching this video right now are going to actually find out that you do have a discrepancy between these two numbers. Matter of fact, if you do this reading for yourself, leave a comment below and let me know what you find. I showed this one time on an episode previous and there was a ton of people who messaged me and turns out there was a discrepancy. See, you might have this problem and you won't even know it. Now, to be honest, sometimes regulators just have mileage on it and they will be inaccurate. They will show a bit of a discrepancy between these two numbers. Sometimes things just get old. But if yours is not reading bang on, this could potentially mean that you are losing gas somewhere. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that you don't have a leak somewhere. Step 1, we're going to perform a leak test. Super easy to do. You're going to use a jar, coffee mug, whatever you find. We're going to fill it with a good amount of dish soap and a bit of water, primarily dish soap. It's going to be real thick and squeaky. You're going to use a small paintbrush, whatever you find, and you're going to paint this onto your fittings. You can check everything on the end of your torch here. You can check it as it goes into the machine. You can see here if you have a leak anywhere in your system, the leak is going to show up immediately. It'll be super easy to see. Just look for the bubbles. You can either tighten the fitting, you can add a little bit of nylon tape into the equation if possible, or in some cases you might just want to replace the fitting completely. You're going to check it on the connection to the actual cylinder at the regulator here. You're even going to check the connections at the gauges. We want to make sure there are no leaks there as well. We're going to check the back of the machine where the gas goes into that, all the spots. What this is going to do, it's going to check and make sure that all of the gas coming out of the regulator is being delivered properly to the torch. Now, like I said, sometimes regulators just get old and grumpy and they read inaccurately. It's all good. So if there is a discrepancy and you don't have any leaks anywhere, obviously this is a good thing. But what we need to remember is the most important thing, and it's all good, you have a flow meter now, right? Always go with the reading that you have on your torch. That is the end that's gonna matter. This thing's gonna help you out a lot. Now, there is also something really important that a lot of people don't know. This one's serious. And this applies to absolutely everybody who puts a new bottle of gas on their machine. Typically what happens if you're welding along and all of a sudden you realize you're almost out of gas, or if you do run out of gas, obviously you're gonna disconnect your regulator, take the bottle off, roll in a new bottle, and then hook that one up. But at this point right here, you have to think about this. What you have just done is essentially interrupted a pressurized system with gas in it. This may not seem like a big deal, but it is. Listen to this. Now, with these interruptions, you've just put a brand new cylinder on, you've got everything hooked up like it was before. There is a real possibility that somewhere in your gas lines, you now have air pockets that have formed. When you start welding, you may get a blast from one of these air pockets. What this can do is it can look like your gas has just disappeared, or it can be a burst. It looks like crazy contamination. This can absolutely wreck your weld right away, or in some cases wreck your tungsten. Or what can happen is that you actually flash up, everything's fine, and you start welding. You can be cruising along as if nothing's wrong at all, and then out of nowhere, boom, right there, we can see some of these air pockets start to creep out of the system and create a burp in your gas line. And it can absolutely blindside you without you expecting it at all. Game over, man. So again, what is a magic trick that's going to get rid of all of these air pockets after you put a new bottle on? You ready for this? Once again, watch my foot here. Click. Easy, right? You see how important this simple little thing is to help you make sure some of these problems do not happen. That last problem especially. Typically what I'll do is give this 2 or 3 clicks of the foot pedal just to cycle through my post-flow setting. Or you can run a gas purge by pressing the button on the machine like I have on my Everlast machine here. I think this one runs for about 30 seconds or something like that. But it will just cycle the gas through and automatically shut off, making sure a complete purge was completed. But these problems are completely gone if you take the time to do this. When you reconnect a new bottle, make sure that your lines are purged and pressurized with good gas. This can take even more time if you've got really long lines on your TIG torch, or in some cases, if your TIG welding machine is hooked up to a gas manifold, this can take even longer to purge this stuff out. Just give it the appropriate time that it needs, and then you're good to go. So at this time, we have made sure that we are getting clean gas through our gas lines. No burps. We have no leaks, we've confirmed this. And the pressure that you are reading at the torch itself is good to go. Now we can get welding, right? Let's consider a few things here. We just took the time with this thing here to dial in the levels really precisely. But do slight adjustments in your gas overall really make that much of a difference? Oh, yeah, bud. Let's look at aluminum TIG welding first. If we drop our gas pressure by even 5 CFH, especially if you're using something like a number 7 or a number 8 cup, your weld is going to start to look a little bit different. We do not like it like this. It might look a little bit dull, it might look a little bit sandy. You'll notice that your overall gas coverage, it can be interrupted much easier due to like movement in the air and stuff like that. If you're working in a big shop, maybe there's fans nearby, doors opening and closing, or your coverage can dissipate really badly over a joint like this. We can see this joint here does not really keep the gas very local to your welding area. The slightest act of bumping your gas up, even just 5 CFH, bonus points. Who knows what CFH stands for? That's right, Cowboys from Hell. Cowboys from Hell! This is gonna help you immensely with something like a bigger cup, like a number 7 or a number 8 cup with aluminum. But typically, for TIG welding aluminum, I'm mostly gonna just be using like a number 5 cup or something like that. And I'm probably gonna run somewhere about 12.5 CFH through that cup. Now, what happens if we start running too much gas? This can be really annoying to a lot of people who will learn that this sucks to deal with. Again, you may be looking at the working pressure on your regulator thinking that that might be reading correctly, but what happens if it's reading incorrectly in the other direction and you're actually running too much gas through your torch? This is where this problem is going to get you. How much do you hear people talking about TIG welding stainless steel and complaining about having to deal with a wobbly puddle? Yes, absolutely happens all the time, and this can happen even easier and even worse if your gas flow rate is too high. And again, this can even be with a little bit extra, like a handful of extra CFHs. And if your flow rate is running too high, this can be accentuated even more with different joint configurations as well. Again, looking at this one here, the gas stability will not be as great with something like this. Now, when TIG welding with aluminum, having welding, excessive gas flow can make this go south as well. Like we talked about, the puddle will not be as stable as it might be with other joints. You may notice that the finish on the weld isn't as uniform or shiny like you're expecting. Sometimes it can look a little bit erratic, a little bit crusty. Even the cleaning action can look kind of whack sometimes. The amount of gas in relation to the size of cup that you are using is very important. With some situations, even dropping your gas just 2 CFH can make a massive difference. As we talked about with TIG welding aluminum, these adjustments can be very touchy sometimes. This can hurt the overall performance and stability of your welding, or if you get yourself one of these little cuties right here, these small adjustments that you can now make can be money in the bank for you. Now, these adjustments are what we cover in my online TIG welding program. Not only a detailed understanding of your machine setup that you are using, but how to learn stuff like this in combination with the perfect welding exercises to get started with. This way you can make these adjustments all by yourself, know exactly what you're looking for in your own home shop or wherever you are welding. Check out this chart right here. This is the layout of how much gas I would use in relation to the cup size that I would TIG weld stainless steel with. Again, it may change a squeak here and there depending on the joint that you're welding, but this is going to be a great guide to help you with this variable. Now check out this chart here. This one's for aluminum. Again, I personally will not recommend using anything bigger than a number 8 cup. Essentially, this is past the point of diminishing returns in my opinion for TIG welding aluminum. And for anything I'm doing as far as TIG welding in my shop here, I'm going to be using something like a number 5 cup, nothing crazy. What are the differences that you are going to make with your setup? Comment below. Let me know what you find when you do these tests for yourself. And hit the classes on my website. I am Dusty James. Fill and chill. Peace.